Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Blindsided Podcast. This is episode 56 or 7. and today we're talking about this illusion of control. And what we're going to first talk about like stress and anxiety stem from the illusion of control, trapping us in a cycle of worry and frustration. And then we're going to talk about how letting go of the need to control every aspect of life will lead to a new power, a new peace, a new happiness, and a sense of direction, more fulfillment. It's amazing, the opposite side of this tight grip that we somehow seem to walk around with, though we don't think so until we come to a podcast like this. Charlie Collins with the Blindsided Podcast. I'm a best-selling author, a speaker, and a grateful dude to be here with Brenda.
Nice. Good morning, Charlie. My name is Brenda Hayden. I'm the founder of Time for a 10. We're an emotional awareness, emotional intelligence coaching service. And there's a team of us, and we help people get to the exact nature of what's bothering them. And we help them unlearn their conditioned thinking and 0 to 7 programming. I'm also co-host of the Blindsided Podcast, and I'm excited to be here to talk about the illusion of control. And I want to say good morning this morning to Nick Carey and Rooted in the Mind. Welcome to the podcast this morning. And we're happy you're here. Molly's here also. I love your wife, Molly. She's wonderful. And let's hit it, Charlie. We have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we do. And good morning to all. And Rooted in the Mind is Shane. He's got a great YouTube channel, so check it out. Rooted in the Mind.
Hey, Shane.
So anyway, Brenda, that was so control. What is it? I mean, why does it affect us? What is an illusion? I mean, do you mean I can't control? Obviously, we all know we can't control the weather. Okay, we can't control traffic. But we do find ourselves getting upset while we're in it and announcing that somebody shouldn't have braked or changed lanes in a certain way or accelerated, or, I got to get to where I got to be. People shouldn't be this way. And what we're doing is that we're trying to control those things outside of us and have them be in a certain way, right?
Absolutely. How does that work out for you?
Well, me as a non-driver, extremely frustrating.
As a passenger, I can ask Molly how that works out for you. But
good thing she's not mic'd up right now.
So you're talking about, right, the things, the circumstances and other people, places, and things that we can't control. And, the illusion of control, which is the topic of this podcast, is really appropriate, because even if you could control the drivers, you would just move on to something else, right? It's a never-ending, bottomless pit. The need for us to try and get control, and all the ways that we try and get it. The first thing that came into my awareness in talking about control was, because I've done this myself, is setting up a routine. Right? I'm going to get up at a certain time. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to work, drive to my job, stay a certain number of hours, eat my lunch at the same time. I even sometimes make the same thing every day. Not sometimes, like I make the same lunch almost every day, right? All of those, I leave at the same time, come home. I have my routine when I get home. Staying in that structure of routine is really about fear of not being in control. And if that structure that I've built to create a sense of safety for myself goes awry, right? Like I was sick a couple of days this week, so my whole routine, I get deregulated. I get emotionally deregulated. That is exactly what we're talking about, right? Think about, if I'm not living in that structure, and that I go outside of that structure a lot, but a lot of people stay in that very exact structure for 30 or 40 years. Like I go out and do things like jump out of airplanes and hang glide. And, I'm going to Hawaii by myself, on the 24th. I do things like that just to disrupt the routine, because I know that it's feeling in that routine. So I don't know if you resonate with that.
Of course, I do. And I, because those have become patterns, which become programming, which become, and we
Absolutely.
don't see it because it's subtle and it slowly drops us. I love how you said the fear of not being in control. That's funny. Um, because Brenda, we do have control over something, and we don't maybe don't have, well, not maybe, we don't have control over events, right? Or stimuluses, things that happen outside of us. And even when we have an intention of it happening a certain way, whether it's a party, a dinner we're having at the house, where the way we go to a store, we have our intention, like, I want to move through and get to finish this task, this event, and then get to, we have our way that we think it should work, and then it doesn't. And then the outcome is we have this, we try to control the outcome, or we blame the event. And we have I mean, well, we have 100% ability to respond. How we respond to something determines our level of anxiety, our level of stress, our level of worry, resentment, and frustration. So if I have the ability to respond to the control I thought I had and let it go, wow. And that takes practice.
It does. It does. Really, if you peel that onion down to its core, down to its core, it's all about getting what we want. It's about getting what we want. And things go really awry when we don't get what we want. And that's human nature. We have a certain expectation that it's going to be a certain way. And then we put all these ducks in a row to make sure that that expectation is met. And somebody doesn't play the role we've assigned to them. There's a whole page 62 and 63 of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous was my entire life. I just go read those 2 pages and you'll know why. People don't meet the expectation of the role we assign to them, right? And then everything, goes crazy, like crazy, I feel out of control. And so, what we have learned through the work that we've done is to try and let go of that, and we have good days and bad days, try and let go of setting any expectations whatsoever. Because listen, I am one person, right? I'm just one soul here on the planet. And the creator of all that has created everything that we see, whether it's one or I don't know what it is, right? But whatever that powerful energy is that created all this knows way better what's good for me than I do, right? So if I got everything I ever wanted, my life would be so small, because the things that I've received as a result of letting go of control and flowing with what's in front of me is so much better than anything I could have planned for myself. As a matter of fact, if I got everything I ever wanted, I probably wouldn't be alive right now.
No.
You know something, right?
I just realized I didn't have a light on in my office, and I I controlled it by hitting a button. So, Brenda, what are most people tuned into? The radio station of WII-FM. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And, really what we're talking about today is this serenity prayer. It's really grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's where I failed miserably, was the wisdom. So you said, so selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. And it's driven by 100 forms of fear. And a big one is that fear of not being in control.
Yeah.
And so we peel back the onion, like you said, and we realize I didn't realize I was thinking of me, how I wanted it to go, how I wanted to flow through this event I'm entering, and how I want to look, feel, sound, and be accepted and all of that. And because I'm focused on all of that, I'm not being authentic, transparent, or myself. I'm not coming from my strengths. I'm coming from self. Like I'm thinking my way through it instead of being. And that did not happen by somebody telling me this on a podcast, that revelation. It happened through what you said, trying and starting to take a look at it. Oh, if I was willing to let go of this and just stand in my space and realize that if I had no judgment, if I have no, it's not my duty to understand the outcome of this, it's just how I respond to it. And then I find out that, like I said, there was this new power. What power? A spiritual energy, something, the creator, a higher power would
Mhm.
step in and help guide me. And then there was this new peace of mind. I'm not getting frustrated. I'm not getting resentful. Then there was this happiness. I felt content and happy to be where I was, no matter what the situation was. And then I felt this new power, this new sense of purpose, of direction starting to flow in. And I can sever that, but that's a nice place to be.
It's a beautiful place to be, Charlie. Our will, 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. We step on the toes of others and they retaliate, and it goes on and on. We put ourselves in a position to be hurt. And it's all to, a lot of what we do is to feel safe, right? And what we're doing when we're seeking control, if you really look at it, what we're doing is we are taking our experiences from the past and saying, oh, I don't want that, or I really want that, right? It could be either side of the spectrum. And then we're trying to navigate the present day with those past experiences, and we rob ourselves of a new experience in that day. And that's exactly what you're talking about. The past has absolutely no place in today. As a matter of fact, the only time the past has life is when I bring it back to life by bringing it into today. Otherwise, it stays in the past. I mean, when I work with clients about ruminating about a past experience, one of the things that we talk about is, why? Why do you need to ruminate about it? Why does it matter? And this is another form of control. Why does it matter knowing why this happened, or why this person behaved this way, or why this circumstance came up? Play the tape forward. Okay, now you know why. Does it lessen the pain? No. Does it give you any more control? No. Now you just know why. And that's a big thing that I run into with clients, is their desperate need to know why, because they think if they can rationalize or make sense of whatever this circumstance in the past was, that they'll feel better about it. And it doesn't work like that. I came from a really abusive childhood. And all my life I kept saying, if my dad just admitted what he did and apologized for it, like even just acknowledge what he did, I would feel so much better. I wouldn't be in all this pain. And guess what? That day came. That day came when he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, I can't imagine the damage I did to you. And you know what it did for my pain? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because in that moment, what I realized is that I was hanging on to that pain. That pain I was hanging on to because it was so familiar. And it was
Right.
my get out of jail free card. It was all about control. I used that pain to feel in control because I knew how to navigate it. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
So Cassidy is chiming in. Trish is chiming in. Shane is chiming in. Good morning to all of you. I'm glad you guys are here. So, okay, Charlie.
Well, so what is it about this, and how do we start to recognize that maybe we're, playing God? Well, okay, that's maybe pretty extreme. Why don't we say that maybe we're feeling stress? We're feeling some anxiety, like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And why is it uncomfortable? Because I have some aspect of control in my mind that I'm noodling with. And because it hasn't happened yet, I'm trying to design it so it benefits me. And that is, well, first of all, we won't tire so easily when we give up that game. When we find out that, you know what, I don't need to rest satisfaction. I don't need to manage well outside of me, because Brenda, there are a few things we do have complete control over. Complete. What we think. I'm not saying the thoughts that come out of nowhere, like whoa, in the shower especially. Um, but what I noodle with, what I choose to think about, I have control over that. I also have control of how I behave. That really is irritating because I need to take responsibility, have the ability to respond how I think about, how I respond to an event, a stimulus, because the outcome of my life was total frustration, resentment, fear, anxiety, stress. And there is no pill that gets rid of that. Um, that I'm aware of, please let me know. No, just kidding. And so, Brenda, I started understanding that grant me the serenity. Why do we want to understand the serenity prayer? And not understand it, experience it, feel it. It's because taking away my difficulties will bear victory to those I would help of God's power, God's love, God's way of life. Now, you could call it nature's love, nature's way of life, how you choose that. But what I've learned over the time is that my difficulties are I created.
Yes.
I have done it in my mind's eye. I've done it through control, through fear. And I realized when I asked for those to be removed, that the victory over my self will allow me to live in this space where I can think about it's whatever the outcome is, it's going to be anyway. I don't, in the life of my children, in the life of my wife, my dog. Oh, I try to control my dog a little too much, and he could be very irritating. So this is the gem of this stuff. Like, Brenda, I have a pen in my hand and I'm holding it with all my might. And it's like, and I'm going to squeeze harder because you're not listening, or the situation. And then I realize, how can I solve this? Well, step one, let go.
Let go.
The tension that just left my body, from my jaw to my inner solar plexus to the grip of my hand, and the feeling of it hitting the ground and letting go, is exactly the way it's supposed to be.
You nailed it, Charlie. You nailed it. What a great visual. What a great example, of what happens to us when we try and exert control. And you also mentioned outcomes, and that's really what drives our need for control, is our attachment to the outcome. Again, if you peel that onion down to the core, it's getting what we want. My attachment to any outcome is getting what I want. But attachment in general, assigning meaning to something that you don't have to assign meaning to. It could just be, it is what it is. And you can choose to look at it differently. And so, because Trish is asking, so we don't need to know why. And no, you don't need to know why, because it's an illusion of control. Knowing why is an illusion of control. It doesn't change the circumstance, knowing why. It just gives you something to play with to make you feel better about what's going on. It gives you a sense of control. Oh, I know what's going on. Okay, that makes sense now. I feel better now. Right? It's the same thing with needing to be right. That's another thing that I don't worry about anymore. Okay, so let's say you're in some kind of conflict, whether it's a person, place, or thing, and you're right. I am so right about this. Okay, I've been in many differences of opinion conversations with people where we have a difference of opinion, and I'm certain that I'm right. Okay, and Who cares that you're right? It doesn't, the other person is not necessarily going to see your point of view, because they have their own set of experiences, their own set of 0 to 7 programming, right? Their own need for control. It doesn't matter if you're right. Oh, well. So when I just say, oh, isn't that interesting? Non-attachment instead of assigning meaning, or I say to the other person, instead of digging my heels in and being right, I say, tell me more about that. Guess what happens when I'm in a conflict with somebody, or I'm in a difference of opinion conversation with somebody, and instead of digging my heels in, I say, tell me more about that. I want to understand, where you're coming from. Now that person gets out of their fear center, which is, driving the drive for control. They get out of their fear center. They go into their heart, because I'm asking them to show me how you feel, right?
Yeah.
And I'm giving them permission to go into their heart, and I'm walking with them instead of walking, in conflict with them. I'm walking with them, right? It's a whole different conversation. And all I had to do was give up control, right? And meet them where they're at. And then it's a whole different conversation. And it becomes a spiritual conversation. It becomes a loving conversation. And a lot more happens in that heart space than happens in the fear. Nothing happens when you're in that fear center. Nothing happens, right? Everybody's vying for control.
Yep.
Everyone wants to win. When you get into your heart and you want to really understand what's going on with that other person, it's a beautiful thing that happens. That's where God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, nature, that's where that energy enters in. And it brings the souls together, the higher selves together, to have a whole new experience.
Yeah. So
Oof, I'm on fire with this today.
yeah. Well, because you are driven to be relieved of the bondage of self.
Absolutely.
And I can see that, and I can hear it, and I can understand, when I talk to you, when we talk, discuss things, and we, you're a person, a like-minded, but you are able to meet me where I am and help me see what I'm not able to see in that space, so I can break free from the bondage of self, which is control, which is selfishness, dishonesty. It's not about cash register honesty. I mean, of course, that's nice, but it's about what I think about the cash register that causes my suffering. And Brent, again, there is this, I said parenting for a reason. I remember, like, growing up, my kids growing up and being like, "God," you tell them and they do it differently. I did that growing up. Sorry, Dad. Um, I wouldn't dare listen. And it's like, because they're old and stupid. No offense. But when it was my turn to have a kid think like that, it's like, no, I am right. I've had the experience. I don't want you to make the mistakes. But if I don't, I will never learn, because I don't know about you, Brenda. Yes, I do know about you, but I don't want to say about that. Is that I am where I am today, not because of somebody giving me these answers prior to me having the experience.
Yes.
But something like this type of podcast, I am feeling a lot of stress and anxiety. I have gone to a doctor and they prescribed something, or I even went to therapy and they helped me see how I can understand how other people live their life in a certain way. But I haven't peeled back the onion to get to the core of what's driving this, because I see it cropping up in all sorts of scenarios throughout the day. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So you come to the Blindsided podcast and you have a massive aha.
So, you said something important there, Charlie. People don't pause and stop and interrogate or even look at what they're feeling in the moment, right? We are right now in this country, and we have been for a long time, very instant gratification oriented. Instant gratification. Feeling, fix it, feeling, fix it, feeling, fix it, right? We don't stop and say, wait, like, is it even true? Is that thought even true? Because the thoughts generate the actions, right? The thoughts generate the feelings. It's actually, we've talked about this before, because in Buddhism, right? Because we learn through the 12 steps that we can't trust our own thinking, right? And then, when I learned about the Buddha trusts his own thinking. I'm like, oh, that can't be true, right? But here's the difference. The difference is the Buddha comes from his heart. The heart generates the thoughts, and the thoughts create the actions. That is the natural flow of things. It's actually, you have 100 million neurons in your gut, right? So that's your intuition. And the 41,000 neurons in your heart, your gut and your heart work together to assess your environment or circumstance. Your energy field goes out 8 feet. And then that information travels to the brain, as it should, to create an action. That's how our system is supposed to work. But what we do is we live up here in a fear structure, and we live up there in the fear structure because that's how it's been designed. So we're like cavemen, right? Cavemen who just ran on instinct. We're trying to stay safe all the time. Is there going to be another pandemic? Is my 401k got smashed because of all the tariffs, right? Am I going to lose all my money, right? The education system's failing. The food system's poisoned, so people are dying of cancer, right? There's carcinogenics in our food. We use the Yucca app. It's in everything, right? I cannot believe emulsifiers are in everything, and they cause cancer. And emulsifiers just change the texture of the food. That's all it does. Anyway, I can go on and on about that. But we live in a fear system because that's what's been given to us. That is the programming, right? Because it's voluntary slavery, really. Consume, produce, consume, produce, consume, produce. That's the US, but I'm getting on some personal stuff here. But the point is, we're in a fear system 24/7. So we're not listening to this part. We're not going to this part of ourselves first. When you're in a fear system, all you want to do is control to stay safe. Of course, I got to get safe, got to get safe, got to get safe. So you have to know the answers. You have to, know what somebody else's behavior, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it, right?
I can't.
Do you hear how my voice is going? Right? Instead of stopping and taking a breath and allowing those feelings, all those neurons, 100 million neurons in your gut and 41,000 in your heart. You stop and you take in the information. And then you have some discernment about the information that you're getting. We don't take the time to do that. We just react, like you're talking about. And I loved how you talked about responsibility, part of the same word.
Yep. And, and in my talks, we have 3 things that we do have complete control over. The thoughts we hold. Doesn't mean you got to trust them. It just means we do. I can think about an apple. I can think about a banana, and I can think about my microphone. How we behave, obviously, no one can make us act in any other way unless they have a gun to our head and they're going to pull the trigger. And okay, maybe then I have lost control.
Mm-hmm.
The images we hold, like the visions, how we sit and meditate, how we visualize things like that. No one can make me see anything differently than I see. So that's huge. And Brenda, I do want to just make it wasn't the tariffs that affected the market. It was the fear of the tariff.
Absolutely.
So they can't affect the market yet because they aren't even, but whatever's going on. But that's because we live in a fear-mongering media world, and it's pathetic. Yeah. And I need to let go of that. I can't control it. I don't watch it. Those people want to act the way they do. That's on them. Yep. I don't go down that path. Yep. I know people that do it, and they have a lot of stress and anxiety over that. Mm-hmm. And you can't control it. Oh my God, but what can you control? How I respond to this fast pace changing world.
Yes.
Look at AI. I mean, artificial intelligence is going to exponentially change everything. And if you haven't buckled up, or you're going to sit back and say, I don't want to, I'm going to control, then, God bless you. You're going to need severe counseling.
Yes. I want to say good morning to Mark. Thanks for joining the podcast. Trish is giving us a recommendation for a book. Sick and Tired of Feeling Sick and Tired. Sick and Tired of Feeling Sick and Tired. It's
I
a
already
great
wrote
book
that book.
by Paul Donahue, Mary Siegel. They're both doctors. Thanks for the book recommendation, Trish. It's always good to get new book recommendations. I love reading books.
And another sign, Brenda, I just want to say another sign is somebody that's puking out how others should live their life. So, well, you should do it this way. You could have said it that way. You should, there's a couple of things going on. Well, obviously you have a lack of control in your own life if you're puking out how to control mine. And it's not so much mine. I see it all the time around how others are offering advice and their opinion. And, Kaylee, my daughter, it was hilarious. I mean, years ago, she said, I don't know, Dad, did you ask? When somebody in the house was offering some opinion or some control over something. And she said, I don't know, Dad, did you ask? And that shuts it down immediately now that we do that all the time. And it's hilarious because I want to help you. I want to share what's probably going to be best for your situation. And if you do it my way, I won't get mad. and then you realize that, or maybe the person says, I didn't ask. I don't want your opinion. I don't need any help. I want you just to listen. And then I need to come up with how to, because I trust and rely on my inner guidance system, and I'm going to get through this. And the outcome is going to be exactly the way it's supposed to, unless I'm doing it with a fear of control, or I'm not good enough, or resentment. You know what I mean?
I do. Listen, I know a slew of people who are addicted to medications. They're popping pills all day long, and they want to tell me how to live my life. Right? And I find, my golden rule when working with clients and other things is I have two golden rules. First, no judgment. And the second is I never give advice. I ask honest, open questions because the answers lie within them. Who am I to tell anybody how to live their life? And if there was a time in my life before I did all this work that I had all the answers, I'm going to tell you how to lose weight. I'm going to tell you how to get sober when I wasn't sober myself. Right? And sobriety isn't just about not putting the substance in your body, and it's also about the thinking, right? So I was not putting substances in my body, and I thought I had all the answers, and I was telling everybody else what to do. People will ask your opinion when they want it. I don't go tell, people how to lose weight, or a family member who's overweight. I don't tell them what to do. It's up to them to connect with their whole inner world, which has all the answers, and figure it out. There's a second reason behind that too. First, it just generates resentment because none of us are squeaky clean. And we have no business telling anybody else what to do. None of us are squeaky clean. We all everybody has their stuff. Everybody, right? So I give an opinion when I'm asked for an opinion. Otherwise, I don't. The second reason why is because people need their pain. Pain is really valuable. When you're sick and tired, just like Trish was talking about this book, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're going to change. And the change has to come from you, not from somebody hounding you to be different. That does not produce sustainable change. The only person you can change is yourself. That's it. You can't change anybody else. You have zero impact on changing anybody else. And even if you hound them long enough for them to create a change, it's not going to stick because it's not coming from within. It's not coming from their own system. It's coming from some pressure from someone from the outside who you just get sick and tired with, or sick and tired of. Molly's saying, Marshall. Oh, hey, Marshall. So good to see you.
Yeah.
Yay. Hi, Marshall. I miss Marshall. I'm speaking on Tuesday next week, so I'll see you. Hopefully you'll be there.
Yes, you do need to make a decision.
Yeah, no, I'm coming for sure.
I know. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
Made a decision. Hello?
Yeah.
Brenda, what will diminish our usefulness to others?
Thinking about yourself. diminishes our usefulness to others. Not being connected to a power greater than yourself will limit our usefulness to others. You can't be in that place. What do you think it is?
Well, I'm going to cheat and steal from previous authors that worry, remorse, and morbid reflection diminish our usefulness to
Oh, for
others.
sure. For sure.
And why is that important? Where does worry, remorse, and morbid reflection come from? Well, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of control.
Yep.
And I didn't know that. But, Brenda, I live with my wife. And for 31 years, well, we've been married over 31 years. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But anyway,
Maybe.
and because I live with somebody who's strong and independent and all, I learn from. Now, if she said every day we woke up, this is how you need to be, I would. And those who are visually impaired, I am not describing what I just did. But instead of just being a person that goes about their day in certain ways, you kind of you pick up things and you learn and you can grow. But you also could be around somebody who's a freaking hot mess, and in your environment is critical to your success. And I have control on how I can set up my environment. I do. I can set things up and make the feng shui and spiritual, whatever. But if I have other beings and things in there that are not healthy, I will eventually. We are, a collection of the 5 people we hang out with the most. And if that isn't health, then we will slowly, without really noticing it over time, get unhealthier. I don't know if that's how you say it, but you know what I mean? Because think about the shift and how when we went to a transformation process and how this 4th dimension, this vital 6th sense of living came because I started noticing people that just had this understanding and experience with this new power, this new peace, this new happiness, and a deep sense of direction. I had none of that when I was a control freak.
Yeah. Yeah. Because very little happens. And we've said it a couple of times now on this podcast. Control comes from fear. Very little happens when you're in your amygdala, your fear center. Most other things shut down. Very little happens. So you don't have progress. You don't have, success. You don't have this 6th sense. You're just trying to stay safe. It's a terrible place to be. It was a terrible place for me to be. You don't connect with anything else except that. It becomes a priority. And there's so much more to connect with. I mean, it's unbelievable what opens up in your world. Like letting go of control and flowing. Remember, flowing with what's in front of you. Right? I get so excited I don't finish my sentences. Is an unbelievable experience. Do you remember a few years back when I said, I'm going to spend a summer not making any plans? And I'm just going to do, and this is what I did. I took an entire summer because I was like, I was learning about all this control stuff. I was, deep in spiritual awakening. I was, growing exponentially spiritually. I said, okay, I don't know if I believe all this. So I decided to take a full summer and not make any plans. And all I did was do whatever the universe laid out for me in any given weekend or day. I did my regular things like going to work. And I had the most incredible summer. I went to sound baths and I ended up at this silent meditation once a week for an hour, a silent meditation for an hour. I thought I was going to kill myself. But, after doing it for a few weeks, it was so helpful. I had tried all these new things and made all these new friends, and it was nothing that I planned. And so doing that experiment taught me like, holy, what? If I just let go, every day could be a new experience. If I just let the universe, God source universe, whatever, show me the way. And it changed my life. This is what ended up having me leave a really horrible relationship, move to a new town, start a whole psychology program at Columbia, travel, do all kinds of different things. This was the beginning of that. Just seeing it in action, being willing to see it in action by saying, I'm not making any plans. 10-10. Look at that. That's confirmation. 10-10 on the clock. That's a spiritual when you see numbers like that. And it happens to me all the time. It's the universe saying, spot on, honey, keep going.
I love how it adds in honey.
Yeah. Oh, my universe loves me. It calls me all kinds of nice things.
It works. It really does.
Yeah.
And Brenda, you said we need to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Okay, maybe we don't need to, but the joy of growing in understanding and effectiveness deliver us to a place that I can't tell. Brenda, I cannot tell you what a strawberry tastes like. I can tell you what it looks like, okay? To the best of my ability of forming an image in your mind's eye. And I can tell you, you wash it and how to prep and then bring it up and then sinking those teeth into it and just letting it hit the taste buds in your body, oh, maybe. But I can explain all that to you, but you cannot experience that until you take the action.
No.
And I can tell you that growing in understanding and effectiveness in life it's freaking beautiful. But until you start growing in some effectiveness and understanding of the spiritual principles that are laid at your feet, but you've been ignoring.
Yeah.
Me too. I can't. I mean, I can inspire you because God power speaks through us and we lift people up. But when we're done with this and we go back to our environment, our way of living, our control-centered mind, we fall back into safety.
Absolutely.
Because unfortunately, it's safe to suffer. It's safe to feel like the way I'm doing it, at least I'm surviving. And survival sucks compared to thriving.
Yes, it sucks. I want to say one more thing about that too, Charlie. You know what happens when you let go and you start to flow? You let go of that control. You stop saying, oh, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? And you start saying, oh, interesting. This is happening for me. I wonder what I'm supposed to learn here. Because anything that's happening in my life is for my highest good. What am I supposed to learn from it? It's not happening to me. It's happening for me.
And let me just touch again on our strengths. If I'm creative, if I have a strength of creativity, that means that there is no control for me. If I have a fairness and love, tolerance, these are strengths, not I got to work on them. I got to recognize that I already have this and I want to tap back into it. How about leadership and what perspective? You said it, Brenda. You said, oh, and how I say it to people is that is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
Now, part of me at times is saying that is a stupid way to look at it. And who am I to judge that your thoughts are stupid? Did you know that I did not know that human beings have all different ways? We're all unique. How we look at things, how we determine the problem, how we dive into a solution, how we don't do a solution, we buy into the problem and we think we can't do anything about it, how we blame others, how we judge, we rationalize, justify, how we give up, how we can't control something so we figure it's useless, how all people handle things differently. And the way I handle it is not right. It's not wrong either. If it's working for me, then wonderful.
Yeah.
But if the way I do something doesn't work for you, I get pissed off, but I don't anymore. It's like, here, dude, do it this way. And a customer taught me that. I said, here are the 3 tools that are going to change your life. This doesn't work for me. I said, lady, what is your problem? I didn't say that, but I'm like, what doesn't she see? I just showed you the solution. And the 3 things for her were different.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh,
Shocked, right?
yeah.
Shocked. She doesn't think the way I do. Oh my God. So Carrie
God
has a
bless
good
her.
comment here. Carrie says, I think denial comes into our mind. Denial. I love that. Don't even know I am lying. I think denial comes into our mind when we cannot face that something else is controlling or driving us, like various addictions, misusing medications, alcohol. It's an illusion. That's a really profound statement. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. We could do a whole podcast on that. So Charlie, you know what I want to say? Because I was doing some research before the podcast about control. And you guys can go look this up. You can go chat GPT it. So right now, each and every one of you are flying through space at 1.8 million miles per hour. We are hurling through space right now at 1.8 million miles per hour, and we think we have control. Like, it's, you know, we don't have control. There really is no such thing as control. So
Brenda,
seize the moment, let go, and have a new experience with people, places, and things, and yourself. And yourself. We lie to ourselves more than anything else. We lie to ourselves.
yeah.
Anyway, that's my closing statement for this great podcast today. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it certainly was. And take back power. Powerlessness comes from control. Power comes you could take that back on a daily basis and each stimulus. And Brenda, why is it that we're booking around at that speed? What is generating that? Would you just tell me the access and that all the earth and how we think that we're controlling and staying in one spot, which is impossible? Will you just end with that and then we'll close it out?
Okay, yes, I will. So here's how you calculate how fast you're hurling through space. Okay. The Earth is rotating on its axis, and that's if you're standing at the equator, at 1,037 miles per hour. It's orbiting the sun at 67,000 miles per hour. The actual solar system, right? The universe is orbiting the center of the Milky Way at 514,000 miles per hour. And the Milky Way is moving through the universe toward the great attractor at 1.3 million miles per hour. So when you calculate all of that, you are hurling through space at 1.8 million miles per hour. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they have discovered that we are not even Earth is not in the Milky Way galaxy. We're in a dwarf galaxy called, I think it's Sagittarius or something like that, that's being slowly consumed, like, pulled into the Milky Way galaxy. So, it's really interesting to go research these things because the more you know, right?
I always thought we were
Fun. It's just fun.
It is. That's cool stuff. I thought we were in the Snickers galaxy. All right. So this has been fantastic. Thank you all for watching the replay and all. If you want to get in touch with Brenda and I, you saw it on the screen. Time for a 10. Blindsided Productions. We're here to help. And we will see you next Saturday, Brenda? No. All right. So please like, share.
Yeah, next Saturday. I'll see you next Saturday. I leave for Hawaii on the 24th.
All right. I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.